And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Micheal Meade. We are so grateful to have Micheal Meade with us. I've gotten the pleasure of hearing him at events, at beloved events before, and he's just such an incredibly wise person who is going to be sharing some awesome information and support with us, and that's going to lead in right into our magical musical evening with Yaima, Phoebe McGill, and Theo, and Zahira, and Lapa, and Soul Nectar. And so we have quite an evening in store for you, and let's give a warm welcome for Micheal Meade.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me all right? I borrowed this from Madonna, but I promised not to dance. So, I'm really happy to be here. I'm here for a particular reason. I'm interested in how we, as the vehicles of life and divinity, living at a time when both culture and nature are at risk, threatened, and at times unraveling, how we, being the only ones alive at this time, humans always are stretched between the goat's earth and the heavens above. That's the nature of humans. Humans are vehicles of the divine. So, and one of our jobs is to channel, in a sense, the full imagination of life, as well as the capacity for beauty and the necessity of healing from the unseen into the seen world. That's what humans are for. I keep sending this in emails to the GOP. They don't respond. Anyway, so what I'm interested in, besides all the beautiful people that are involved in the village building convergence and city repair, I'm interested in forms. How do we imagine, create, sustain, and develop forms that allow us to help reimagine culture and heal nature? That's what my interest is. That's why I came here. Yeah. And so, because the first time I came to the village building convergence, I saw things that I had never seen before in terms of people of different ages, people of different orientations coming together with the idea of doing repair. And I'm really interested in repair and reparations. In other words, the issues that bleed from history need reparation, just as the things that we see that are broken in the world need repair. Humans, as vehicles of healing, can do that. That's really part of what we're supposed to be doing. And strangely enough, in attempting to repair other things, we repair ourselves. That's an old move. If you don't know what you're supposed to do, try to help someone else, and it winds up helping you. I would also say, if you commit yourself to some kind of meaningful work and you're not getting something out of it, something's wrong. Right? It isn't just about giving to others. There has to be a loop back in which we get nourished and enriched ourselves. So that's another reason I come here, is because there is so much care and so much instinctive connection and support here. So I think what is trying to be born and reborn here, I know it's been through several stages already, is significant and valuable for what's trying to happen, as they say now, on a planetary scale. You know that the word planet means wandering star. That's what it means. When people say planet, I don't think they know You know, they say all over the planet. They don't know we live on a wandering star. And just saying that increases the volume in the whole system. Do you notice that? Just go to this, anyway. So, is that getting too loud? It's getting too loud. All right. I don't know who I'm talking to. Someone, whoever's running, anyway. So I want to read a poem about the planet, which is also called the Earth. And in case no one gave you the basic information, we are the Earthlings. People talk about humans being separate from nature. That's impossible. We can do harm to nature, but we can't be separate from it because our nature is connected to great nature. The depth of human nature, if you go all the way into the depth of a person and turn them inside out, you wind up with nature. And then if you happen to hang out in West Africa, something that I highly recommend, then you find out that in West Africa what they say is nature is spirit with a green garment on. So when people here are talking about nature, and planet, it sounds like a scientific assessment, whereas in the tribal worlds, it's spirit wearing the garments of transformative life. And so I'm just saying that because I'm on stage and no one told me there were any rules or limits. So this is Rumi, who is anticipating the big struggles of the modern world. You know, poets are by their nature prophetic. And so this is called A Small Green Island. There's a small green island where one white cow lives all alone on that meadow of an island. And the cow grazes all day until nightfall and becomes full and fat. But during the night she panics and grows thin as a single hair, worrying, what shall I eat tomorrow? There's nothing left. But by dawn the grass has grown up again and becomes waist high, and the cow starts eating. And by dark the meadow is clipped short again, and she is full of strength and energy. But then she panics again in the dark of night and grows abnormally thin during the passing of the darkness. And the cow does this over and over, and this is all she does, and she never thinks this meadow has never failed to grow back. So why should I be afraid every night that it won't? Listen, that cow is our bodily soul. And the island field is this world that grows lean with fear and then fat with blessing. Lean and fat, lean and fat. So listen, my white cow friends, don't make yourselves miserable about what is to come or not to come. You get what he's saying? I'll put it another way. People think the world might come to an end, and it can't. I mean, my basic study is mythology. And mythology is about the ongoing, ever-going recreation of imagination, life, and the world we live in. The so-called world, the planet, used to be called the front of the world, and the back of the world is everything that's eternal and beautiful and imbued with love, and the back of the world is pouring itself into the front of the world all the time. And no matter what people do, we can't destroy this thing. This is what mythology says. I like the idea. I'm not saying it's not all endangered. I'm just saying the danger isn't that it will disappear. The danger is that we won't figure out how to use our own lives meaningfully enough to give it a rebirth. It is not going to end. That's what myth says. That's what the stories say. And me, I'm sticking with the old stories. But you get the distinction I'm making? I'm not saying we're not in big trouble. We're in big trouble in culture and in nature. That's the time we're living in. The old idea is that the human soul picks the time when it wants to live. If you take that idea, then you say each of us came here to participate in the healing of this big wounded world. But the world itself can renew out of its own depth of connection to the eternal unseen. The modern modern mind thinks everything is measurable. There was a beginning, therefore there has to be an end. But the ancient mind, which we also have access to by virtue of having souls, the ancient mind says it's all been there all along and will eternally be so. That doesn't mean we don't have work to do. It just means that we don't have to pretend we're saving the whole thing. We just have to get involved in a way that's meaningful, that uses what I call our each using our own unique genius. That's the idea I'm after. A little poem. So that in mythology, there's always two stories. The big story of the world ongoing, and then the small, surprising story of each individual soul. The soul of the person is connected to what used to be called anima mundi, the soul of the world. The world has a soul, and our souls are connected to that soul. And when a person finds the thread of their life, and each time we move even one step towards what our lives came here to become, we are connecting to the soul of the world, and by doing that, we are automatically bringing healing. So there's things we can do collectively, like repair the city, but then inside that general repair, each person has their own unique way of doing something that makes it all better, all more beautiful, all more vibrant, all more penetrating, and all more connected to the eternal. And so this is a poem about that. William Stafford, right? You know who I'm talking about. I can't come anywhere near Portland without thinking of William Stafford. I had the good fortune to work with him for years. Beautiful, beautiful soul he was. And this is his little poem called The Way It Is. There's a thread you follow. It goes amongst things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you are pursuing, and you have to explain about this thread. It's hard for others to see it, but while you hold it, you can't get lost. In other words, we become lost when we lose the thread of our own being. Yes, tragedies happen. People get hurt and die, and you suffer and grow old. Nothing we can do can stop time's unfolding. Just don't ever let go of the thread. So in the midst of this, at times collapsing, at times renewing world, one of the biggest tricks, maybe the essential trick, is to find the thread of one's own life. Because that thread is not that we pull it, it's that it pulls us. I call it the thread of destiny. And if all the cultures, I study all different cultures, and most of them have this notion of some individual thread of genius that pulls a person towards their destiny. Destiny means the destination, the thing we're aimed at. And so it seems to me that with culture being in such desperate condition, you know what I'm talking about, oppression, violence, disparity, all these things that just keep getting bigger and more horrendous. In the midst of that, and in the midst of nature, which is also in an extreme condition now, as you could tell from the temperature today. You know, the not just climate change, but now they have the new study out saying how much the earth is warming, and so on. So we're living in that kind of drama. But I would suggest this, there is no one answer to fix it. Every time someone thinks they have one answer, that starts another cycle of people being in conflict, because you know how that goes. So the one thing a person can trust is finding the thread of their own life, what I call genius. Genius has nothing to do with intelligence per se. Genius is an old word that means the spirit that's already there. It means that which is born. So when each person is born, each child that is born, regardless of gender, regardless of socioeconomic condition, ethnicity, race, whatever, things people want to put on that child. Regardless of that, that child is born with a thread of genius that intends to unfold. This thing inside us that is the essence of us intends to unfold. And according to all the old stories, I've studied stories from all different cultures, everybody has at least one story saying that what's inside a person, if it can come out in the way it is intended to be unfolded into the world, it is not just a benefit to that person, but it's a benefit to everybody else. So that when a person follows the thread of their life, they are automatically helping other people. Am I making sense? Yes. Well, unfortunately, the opposite is true too. If a person cannot find or follow the thread of their life, they are automatically taking away from the glow of the world. And so that it's to be a human being is to be in the crux of that which can be life enhancing and that which can be devastating and leading towards death. Death was in that poem of Stafford's also, and I want to go a little bit towards death, but in a way that I learned from people in West Africa. Someone mentioned to me that at the beginning, maybe 10 days ago, of the village convergence, that for whatever reasons, no one thought to invite the ancestors in, which is typically something you do at the beginning of an event. So the question was, can you invite them in now? And I said, sure. You know, I mean, ancestors, they're really old. They're hard to offend. Besides, they have big lapses of memory. You know, I mean, they're so, you know, they don't know they weren't invited, you know. I'm kidding. But also, my first drumming teacher told me every mistake is a new style. And the trouble with people is they give up on their mistake before it becomes a style. So in the interest of turning a mistake into a new style, we'll invite the ancestors in on the last evening. And just suggest to them that sometimes you save the best for last. And all apologies for any insult that might have happened, it wasn't intended. So what I want to do now is invite the ancestors. Are you willing to help with it? Yes. So this is a song from the Dogara tribe in Burkina Faso in West Africa. I got it from Malidoma Somé. Some of you may know Malidoma and Sabonku. They came over from Dogara land. And this is a song that would be sung to bring the village together, literally. This is a song they sing to converge the village. It's also a song they sing to begin things. And it's also a song of blessing. Because in most of the traditions in Africa that I've been able to study, when people die, they're not completely dead. The ancestors in Africa are called the living dead. We are the living, and they are the living dead. The difference is we have bodies and they had to let theirs go. And but they remain interested in those who have bodies. And so the ancestors are a source of guidance in most traditional cultures. And one thing I like about them, they're supposedly the ones who send us dreams. And so people are, traditional people often call on the ancestors for guidance and for dreams. Dreams means have a big imagination, be in touch with the world that's unfolding from the unseen into the manifest. And so this is how that song goes. You'll pick it up. It's not hard. Pura samne wo, pura samne wo, pura mamne, Soften the drum down so we can hear it. It's pura, which means praise. Sa, S-A, which means grandfather or male ancestor. Many, which means much. Pura, sa, many. Oh. And then pura, praise. Ma, which means grandmother or female ancestor. Many, much. Much praise to the male ancestors, much praise to the female ancestors. May they send us dreams that brighten our lives, that clear our eyes, and open big roads before us. May they teach us, or help us, or guide us to become healers in this world broken in so many ways. Much praise to those ancestors that lived and died, but still keep an interest in life. Much praise to that ancestral feeling that is deep inside each person, that is the essence of community, and the thing that makes us want to come together. Much praise to all of that in each of us. Are you ready to sing? Remember, every mistake is a new style. This song is so old you can't hurt it. You don't have to be in key, you don't have to have rhythm. You just add your breath to the song. Pura stamine, pura stamine, pura stamine, pura stamine, pura mamine. Fade the drums out. We'll just sing the last verse, Put 'em on many. It's always sang to the grandmothers at the end, because everybody understands that each person, boy or girl, male or female, came into the world through the womb of a woman. And so the gratitude for birth and the gift of life is always considered in the end of the song by singing to the grandmothers. But also I want to say that someone had asked this thing about the ancestors when I got here, and I said, yeah, I think we could do that. And then the way it goes for me, I'm then holding it like, is this the right thing? I don't know. Maybe there's a better thing to do, I don't know. And then someone told me that a good friend of theirs died just recently. And so then I said, okay, that person now has become an ancestor. That's one way to understand what happens to death. And so then that tells me, okay, that is where we have to start from, regardless of what happened before. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so when we sing it now, we'll sing it for anyone that you know that has died. And that can be anybody that has died recently or at any time. Because the people who have died, this is another old idea, as long as someone is thinking of you after your death, you're still alive. Life is to be remembered in the presence of the world. And so when we think of someone who has died, we're holding them in life. And so for that person who has recently passed, and for anyone else you think of, we'll sing it to the grandmothers, Pura Mamini. Pura Mamini, Pura Mamini, Pura Mamini Mo, Pura Mamini Mo. That's starting to sound good there. Thank you for singing. We'll come back to the song later. But thinking about the grandmothers makes me want to tell a story. Are you ready for a story? Yeah. That wasn't very enthusiastic. Yeah. You know, the Indians up here in the Northwest say that if you don't encourage the storyteller, you'll go home with a hunchback. Are you ready for a story? So, this is a Native story, Native American story. I do kind of like a multicultural thing, right? So this is going to be a Native American story, Apache story, told with a drum from Burkina Faso, with a volunteer head on the drum because the one that came from Africa split, so a Bassan Island goat volunteered to be on the drum. And I'm going to play a West African rhythm while I tell the story in a New York accent and follow it with an Irish interpretation. I mean, it's kind of what's in the soul, you know. I mean, outside they can say you look like this or that, but inside the soul is deep and rich and has connections to all kinds of deep cultural places. And so, here's how this goes. Once upon a time, they say, and yet there is no once upon a time. We are always once upon a time, once hidden in time, once on the verge of time erupting and turning into eternity. And so the old people always thought that time was just a measure, keeping track until we could lose ourselves in the great eternal dream of life. And they would say that even though people don't see it now, nearby there is a cave, which is the place of great wisdom. And even though most people don't know about it, it's nearby. And even though people are out driving 24 hours a day, even if it's 90 degrees back and forth on interstate highways and local highways and back streets and two tracks and whatever they can get themselves going on day and night in all directions, and even though everybody's moving constantly, no one seems to come upon that cave, and yet that cave is said to be the source of wisdom. And the old people say that in that cave there's an old woman, and they say that that old woman has been there for a very long time, weaving, for she loves to weave. And what she's been weaving is the most beautiful garment that anyone has ever seen. And in order to make it exquisite, she's been trimming it with porcupine quills. And in order to make them right, she has to bite down on each quill. And she's been biting down on quills for so long that she's worn her teeth down to nothing but nubs above the gums inside her mouth. But still, she keeps biting down on porcupine quills, and she keeps weaving those quills into the hem of the garment that she considers to be the most beautiful thing that anyone has ever seen. And once in a while, perhaps because a woman's work is never done, or perhaps because this is a complex world that everybody gets born into, once in a while, she has to stop and go to the back of the cave. And at the back of the cave, there is a fire burning. And she says that that fire is the oldest known thing in the world. fire has been burning since the very beginning of everything. And over that fire, in the back of the cave, there hangs a cauldron. And in the cauldron there is a stew. And the stew that's in the cauldron is made of all the seeds and all the grains of the earth. And she has to stir that stew that's hanging in the cauldron, that's simmering over the fire, that's the original thing in the entire world. For if she doesn't stir it, those seeds will burn, and if the seeds burn, there may be no grains, and there may be no fruits, and there may be no vegetables, and there may be nothing for people to eat. So, every once in a while, she goes to the back of the cave in order to stir the stew of creation. And because she's been working for such a long time, and because the work of stirring the stew of creation is difficult, and because she's getting old, she moves kind of slowly. And as she's shuffling away back towards the back of the cave in that old ancient fire, the black dog, what black dog? The black dog that was nearby wakes up and goes over to where she has laid down the most beautiful weaving that anyone has ever seen. And the black dog, seeing a loose thread, grabs a hold of that loose thread and begins to pull on it while the old woman is stirring the stew of creation. And the black dog keeps pulling until it has unraveled the entire garment that the old woman has been weaving for God knows how long. And after a while, when the old woman comes back and she sees all of the work unraveled and strewn on the floor of the cave in some chaotic disorder, she stands there for a moment in silence. And then she sits down. She gathers herself, and she also picks up a loose thread, and she begins to weave again. And as she begins to weave, she sees in the eye of her mind the most beautiful garment that anyone has ever seen, more beautiful than the one she was working on before. And she begins to weave that garment. And the old people say, she's weaving right now in that cave that's nearby, that no one seems to be able to find, that has in it the wisdom of this world. And the elders of the tribe say, although some people think, damn that black dog, causing all the chaos and bringing all that trouble into the world, the elders say, gratitude to the black dog that unravels things every once in a while, just so they can be picked up and be rewoven again. And gratitude to whoever gives us the opportunity to be alive, for we are alive during the period of picking up the threads and weaving. And I think I already told you that all you have to do is find your own thread, and then you can contribute to the weaving, which is the reweaving of the entire world. And that's the only real responsibility we have. And the old people say, if everyone would just find their thread and have the courage of the old woman, then we could reweave the world of nature back together with the world of culture. And once we do that, we ourselves would see the most beautiful thing that anyone has ever seen. Thank you. So that's the story of the old woman in the cave, or the old weaving woman, or the black dog story, or whatever you want to call it. It's an old story. Many native tribes have it. That one kind of comes from the White Mountain Apache. And the elders would bring the story out when everybody was in trouble. As a reminder, again, it's not to say we're not in trouble. It's just to say that in the midst of the unraveling, there is a creative activity of finding the threads through which to weave it again. That's the kind of hopefulness that's in the story. It's not to deny it at all. Each part of the story could take a very long time. And so you could find yourself caught in the unraveling of your own life for a while, maybe even for years. But it might be helpful and hopeful to remember, if you could just take a loose thread, you might be able to weave it back again. So we are, yeah. A village is the weaving of a collective group that can sustain the unique genius of each person. Without the village, the genius can't blossom. Without the genius, the village can't grow. They both are needed. It's this two-part dance. The large group and the collective mind and the village in a sense, and then the growing of the individual unique contribution. Both are needed. If it goes too far one way, it gets out of balance, and we get lost again. So, having laid out the territory of the story and having no idea what the timing of things are, what struck you in that story? A story is a series of details woven together in such a way as to catch your attention in order to bring you closer to what's trying to grow inside your own soul. So when you say what struck you, you're actually diagnosing yourself and also giving a kind of prognosis too. So what struck you, anyone, just so that the village speaks? Yes?
The porcupine quills. The beauty from naturally created stuff.
Yes, and watch the intelligence of the story. The porcupine quill usually comes out and sticks you. In this case, it's taken and turned sideways and flattened. And you've seen that if you know Native American stuff. It's on the vests and various things. So one of the artistries of the world is to take something that could do harm and turn it into something beautiful. And so that's what's being shown there. It's not, kind of misuse the animal. It's actually trying to show how something that could penetrate and stab can be turned into something that's beautiful. That's how villages are sustained. Right? 24 hours of working together and people will find things to be in conflict about. It's a great capacity we have. But the trick is how to then find ways to turn that conflict into creativity. There can be no peace unless conflict is engaged. Old idea, yes?
So I think the beauty of the story is we can all relate to working so hard on something and then having it fall apart right before our eyes. And just the emotion that comes with that. And I've been thinking a lot about, babies and younger kids have immediate emotional response and release that emotion, whereas a lot of times we suppress that. And I think it's the real beauty and the crux of the story, and just envisioning this grandmother, this lady, seeing her entire creation that she's worked so hard on unraveled on the floor, and just that moment of calmness, collecting herself, and she immediately sits down and begins weaving again.
Yeah. There's this dynamic between the two of them. It's her dog. Right? And whose dog is it? It's her dog. She knows what happens. And you could say, in a way, the black dog is that immediate, instinctive, spontaneous, emotional part of ourselves. Because in traditional cultures, black is beautiful from the beginning. You know what I'm saying? People got mixed up, like only 110 years ago or something, and some people decided they were white. It was a really stupid thing to do. You know what I mean? There aren't like white people. They're just people who forgot who they were. It's a short course. Like when they say everybody should go back where they came from, there's no white land. Greenland, yeah. Ireland, yeah. Whole land. We got lots of lands, but there were none of them were white land. You know what I'm saying? They literally forgot the history and the ancestry Because when you get down into the ancestry, everybody gets connected again. So there's a hidden kind of village of ancestry that's still waiting to, it surfaces once in a while. But I wanted to say this thing about black because white culture kind of pretends to be higher and brighter and better. It's kind of a delusion. You know, chemistry, the word chem, alchemy, the word chem, means dark knowledge. Chem means dark knowledge. In ancient Greece, the word for wisdom was dark knowledge. So in the story, they have a black dog who, yes, is causing trouble, but bringing tremendous vitality and, as he was saying, emotion. So I'm just trying to make the territory of the world more, of the story more open and available, and trying to say, yeah, there's really bad things going on in the world right now. All kinds of them. Pick your poison. At the same time, all the old stories say that for every poison in this world, there is an antidote. And each one of us is carrying some bit of antidote that can cancel, alter, or turn the poison into medicine. I mean, that's how I have to think about it. Because I've worked for many years in really tragic places, and the only way that I could find to avoid despair over what people do to each other is to realize that somewhere in ourselves, under enough intensity, we can break out the medicine that we came here with. And once we do that, we can actually contribute to the healing of all the brokenness. I'm going back to that point. Anyone else just to touch on the story? Way back there, can bear.
Yeah, this is kind of complex, but like you talked about alchemy, and in my own life, what I found is that there's these series of buildings where we're like building up this beautiful tapestry, and then there's crushing of it. But that has to happen because the next level of sacred marriage gets higher each time there's a distraction. You become more and more pure. The actual unraveling, the actual destruction is creating a new rebirth material to birth the next construction. It's happened so many times in my life. It just gets level, but then it comes back. It's a brand new potential.
Well, and if the brokenness is followed, it goes down. And so you get depth. You can't get enough depth in this world. Because the greater depth the person has, the more they can handle the heights. So that's one thing. The other thing, I was just saying this because, you know, the story came to mind and now I'm thinking about it. Most communities come apart because they fail to handle the conflicts that arise. Conflicts arise, it's part of the deal. And in the conflicts is where the heat of creation is. If people can just find a way to agree to stay together, even amidst conflict, then the outcome is creativity. And so I'm just saying that because I know in a lot of communities that's what happens. Serious conflicts arise and we have no rituals or even philosophy for dealing with it. But if we're going to actually heal and not just do one of those things where we say, well, we're like the good people and then they're ruining the planet, which is a split that you can't really have for very long and remain meaningful, then what has to happen is people have to get in the room with the conflicts present, with the black dog present, and feel it and find ways then to turn the penetrating quill of disagreement into the decoration of the garment. Okay. I grew up in the 60s and was part of a lot of protests and a lot of really amazing things, and regardless of what people say now, we stopped the war, just to be clear, because there's revisionist history going on, and people did come out and stop a war, which imagine doing that now. But one of the things that happened is people had a hard time staying together when the conflicts arose. And so I'm just mentioning because the story shows it, and because it's bound to happen. The closer we get to doing meaningful things, the more intense the conflicts get. And so there has to be a rediscovery of the ritual ways of finding paths through disagreements, or else people only hang together for a while and then splitting and go off. I'm just throwing stuff out because of the idea of convergence, and because the story is really talking about the recreation constantly trying to happen in the center of the human soul, and because what makes a community is when the soul begins to be intense enough that it pulls people together. But then we have to serve the soul by staying present even when we disagree. I'm just saying. Back there.
Yeah, and just the gratitude factor, to be grateful for the whole thing, to be grateful for the opportunity, for the chaos, for the ability to see it, the need for change.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's a hard thing that's beautiful that you said it's a hard thing to do. I find it hard to do. You know, I like to get angry at people. I enjoy that a lot. You know, part of my Irish background. And, you know, but it has a limit in a certain sense. And even injustice has to be tolerated long enough to cure it. And so what you said is true. And so the function of the whole stories is not to deny what we're actually experiencing. As he said earlier, it's the spontaneous emotion that makes us truly human. At the same time, it's helpful to have images and symbols of what it might look like to go through a conflicted, dark period and have creativity come out of it. In India, I met someone earlier who has arrived recently from India. Welcome again. And in ancient India, one of the gods of creation creates the world twice. And the first time the world is created out of abundance, out of joy, out of the pure manifestation of the creative impulse. And out of that came all the mountains and the trees and the rivers and the fish and the people and everything, the stars and the whole thing, and it was a great thing. And then after that creation, in a kind of cosmic postpartum, the god got depressed and lonely and afraid, and then recreated the world out of that. And so the world has been created twice, once out of beauty, joy, and abundance, and another out of sorrow and loss and pain. And so why I think they tell that story is to remind us that we can create out of either mode. We can create out of the breaking down of our life. That's what the blues is. That's what a lot of music from Africa can take you into, those dark places where recreation is happening as well. So joy whenever you can get it. But remember, emotions travel in pairs, and joy travels with sorrow. Sorrow takes you down, and if you're willing to go, you come back up, and the ride back up is free. So we have a couple of things we have to do before we get to the wonderful music. I mentioned this thing about genius, so I just want to read this. The great failure of the modern world involves the loss of the sacred connection, so that it leaves us now in a place which the poet said is where the best lack conviction while the worst are full of passionate intensity. And what I mean is all those rigid belief systems that are so big in the world right now, passionate intensity from the worst place. And then it's hard to hold the real conviction of beauty. That's the world we live in, according to William Butler Yeats. So, in a sense, we must make ourselves capable of the divine again. I don't think there's any other way out of this. I don't think there's a political way out. There certainly isn't a military way out. I don't think there's a therapeutic way out. I think we have to make ourselves capable of the divine. So that thing which, it's eternity which heals the wounds of time. And so somehow we have to get ourselves back close into that sacred connection, which is a connection to the divine. So, just to say. And so in the service of the village and in the attention to those in the village doing a lot of service, could we have the core village group, the core group, and then the coordinators? You know who you are. We might need more light so we can see them. Well, we want them to come up here so we can see them. The core group and the people who have been coordinating. All right, and we'll go to the song. So, what we want to do, we have a song, we want to sing to them. The ancestor song is also a blessing song. And they say it's the ancestral part of a person that wants to make a real community. And so we sing the song to them. And then someone said, oh, it's always, confusing when some people get separated out and we want everybody to be together. But here's the old understanding. You celebrate certain people in order to celebrate the creative and the beauty inside of each of us. So it's not that it all goes to them, it goes through them back to everybody. You know what I'm saying? We come together by aiming it somewhere, and then it comes back at everybody. But also to say real gratitude to these people for imagining, for working together, for bringing everybody together, for having the conviction of doing meaningful repair and convergence. Gratitude to these people. Sing to them, because the song is a blessing, so you bless them. Blessing comes from the French word blessure, which means wound. So when you're blessing someone, really what you're doing is trying to slightly heal their wounds, because people get wounded in doing meaningful work, and everybody's wounded anyway. So we want to say gratitude and bless them at the same time, and remember, all mistakes are a new style. Ura samine, ura samine, ura samine mo, ura samine mo. All you have to do is raise your hands. And you aim the energy from inside yourself, which automatically has healing qualities, through the palms of your hands at them. And some of it will bounce back on you, and that's good. Ura everybody, for your coverage, for your care for everybody. We hope you do it again next year. All right, so we're ready to move on to the celebration that is natural after all the work that's been done.